Hello everyone from Maputo, my hometown. I came here from Kampala and I had the idea to recreate my current most popular video. So I'm here in the same location, wearing the same dress, similar hairstyle, and ready to share some fun facts about Maputo and Mozambique as well. Let's begin! Shall we start with the weather? Because who doesn't like to talk about the weather, right? Well, the temperatures in Maputo are becoming more and more extreme. This past winter, the lowest temperature was 6 degrees Celsius, which for Mozambique is very low. Everyone was calling Mozambique Russia. Actually, let me say Maputo because I'm pretty sure Tete, which is our warmest province, did not experience 6 degrees. But the point remains. This past November, there have been several days in which the thermometers reached not 35, not 37, but 40 degrees Celsius. Luckily, I was in Kampala when that happened, which makes me not miss living here, to be honest. At this point, I can state without mouthful that Rwanda and Uganda have the best weather in East Africa. Argue with your ex. The other day, I was talking to a civil engineer about how Kigali and Kampala didn't have as many colonial constructions. And he told me that according to a book he read, it was because the British/Belgian colonizers did not intend to live full-time in those cities. Whereas Maputo was pretty much a second home for the Portuguese, and it was called Lourenço Marques, by the way. So the the Mozambicans built all of this under the guidance of the colonizers. That's why in Maputo and in other provinces as well, you can find a plethora of beautiful old constructions. And then we fought for independence and the Portuguese had to leave the country expeditiously. And suddenly there were thousands, if not millions, of empty houses in the cities. All of them were filled by Mozambicans. Allegedly, any local could just choose and claim a house. My parents told me that some people were so afraid of claiming a house because they thought that the owners would eventually come back. So only the brave people were able to claim the bigger houses because they were not afraid, which I find hilarious. But it makes sense. Imagine your bosses quickly have to pack up and flee the country, and now you're able to own everything they leave behind. The house, the pool, the furniture. It's a bit of a shock. Anyway, that's a very brief and diluted part of Mozambican history for you. Feel free to do your own research from more reliable sources, of course. Our colonization was quite strong. So although we gained beautiful buildings, we lost a lot of our identity. The main example of that is the language. Portuguese is our only official language, and it's not ours. We do have local languages. In Maputo, the most widely spoken local language is Xangana. Some South Africans from the region of Limpopo can also speak and understand Xangana, by the way. I've always felt bad about the fact that I didn't grow up speaking Xangana, but during the colonial days, all the Mozambicans that wanted to reach higher status in society were incentivized to speak only Portuguese and basically neglect their local language and their roots. So they raised their children that way. Speaking Xangana was something that the kids, i.e. my parents' generation, they would do it in secret. It was something cool and forbidden. In the house, they were only allowed to speak Portuguese. So most of my generation does not speak Xangana at all, especially those who grew up in the city. They don't speak it at all, which is really sad. When I was in Rwanda and Uganda, people would ask me, but what's your language? And I was like, stop asking me that question. Anyway, I tried to reverse that by taking some Xangana classes during lockdown. I learned a lot of theory about this beautiful language. And hopefully one day, when I move to Maputo's countryside, if that day ever comes, I'll be able to practice with those around me and maybe finally become fluent in Xangana. Fingers crossed. Maputo's railway station has been, for years now, considered one of the 10 most beautiful stations in the world by the Times magazine. I've been there countless times to take photos and to make videos about it.
Desta que, segundo a revista Times, é uma das estações mais bonitas do mundo.
It's definitely a must visit if you ever come to Maputo. Another iconic building in Maputo is the Pulana Hotel, in which some scenes of the Blood Diamond movie were filmed. I remember when the crew came here to film, I was still in high school, and we were all amazed by the fact that all of these Hollywood actors were here to film. Some streets were blocked for shooting, everyone was applying to become an extra for the movie. It was a whole frenzy for sure. African time applies in Mozambique, which means we will be late. If a wedding starts at 12 noon and you arrive at 2 p.m., chances are you'll still catch the beginning of the wedding because everything and everyone will be late. And I was so happy to learn that there's a cultural reason for it. We have an excuse. So during Mashangana classes, we learned that time is a very general figure. So in general, the time construct is the sun is down, the sun is coming up, the sun is up, the sun is going down, the sun is about to go down, the sun is down. So that explains why for so many people, 10 o'clock and 12 noon is the same thing. The sun is up. Listen, my Shangana teacher explained it way better, but that's the best way I can relate to you. There is a cultural excuse to why we're always late. Just deal with it. Be patient. In parliament, almost half of the seats are occupied by women. The president of the parliament is also a woman. I say this because in many African countries somewhat more developed than Mozambique, it's almost impossible to find women in parliament. According to Statista.com, Mozambique is in the top 5. That makes me very happy. Let's end with some economical facts. Did you know that the Mozambican currency is amongst the top 20 strongest currencies in Africa? Right, I didn't know that. I only realized it when I was in Rwanda and especially Uganda when I was converting the money. $100 can go much further in Kampala than in Maputo. The current rate is $1 per 63-65 mets. At least now that I've traveled around, I know that Uganda and Tanzania are cheaper than Mozambique. Kenya as well, I think. Mozambique has one of the fastest growing economies in the world. I didn't know that. But according to IMF's World's Economic Outlook, these are the top 10 most dynamic economies in Africa, and Moz comes right after Libya. So maybe Mozambique is not a bad place for you to come and start a business, especially if your business is related to food. We love food and we will always spend money on food. But there are other areas of business that are also very much profitable, and I can tell you that Mozambique is filled with expats and foreigners that have started successful businesses and are thriving in the country. So, which of these facts did you find more interesting? Please talk to me in the comments, and I'll see you soon. Mwah!